Hey there, it's Mandy from Streamline for Success, and in this video we're going to cover off how to actually test and make sure that your campaign is working before you hit that go live button and get it out to the world. So let's dive in. It's Mandy Brasser here from Streamline for Success. Thanks for checking out this video, and I'm going to walk you through the steps that we take to check that a particular campaign is set up and working and that there's no issues. So make sure you jump into the campaign that you're wanting to launch. And firstly, you want to make sure that all of the elements are marked as ready and are published. So you can notice there's dark green and there's no other changes to be made, so I can't publish any others. But in each of the different sequences, just make sure each of the elements are green and ready to go. So if there's anything else there not ready, mark it as, move it from draft, this one, draft to ready for each of those elements, and you should be good to go. So you can see it looks like I've made a change there. I'm going to go ahead and publish that. So I'm assuming you've got all of that taken care of. So what we want to do is go through each element and essentially just check and make sure each are functioning as intended. Now I firstly want to start from the start, so the opt-in. Now I want to kind of flag here, as a number of you use different landing pages and other opt-in tools, that your opt-in goal may be a little different to this one here. And the reason why I wanted to use a web form goal was because I've seen this many times with different clients, that they use a tool such as lead pages, and I know it's a bit of the old setup, but some of you may still be using web page integrations with Infusionsoft, that sometimes the thank you page is actually managed in lead pages or the relevant tool, and it's not actually reading the thank you page on the web form in Infusionsoft. So I just want to kind of flag that. That's something that you definitely want to test. So if you've got a landing page set up integrated with this web form or via a tag goal, you want to go ahead and test that particular landing page. For the example here, I'm just going to test this particular web form, and I'm going to just use this hosted version and click here. So the thing I'm particularly testing here is two things. Firstly, well, a couple of things. Firstly, that the contact gets added or updated in Infusionsoft. Secondly, that I go through to the right thank you page, and that I go into the right sequence as well. So I'm going to just use me, that's my email, and I'm going to go ahead and submit that. So if I head back into the campaign, it's still kind of thinking. We're going to talk about this redirection in a moment, but what I'm going to do is just go back to the web form and just check, is that the page that I actually wanted them to go through to? And yes, it is. That's the actual page. So always make sure that the thank you page is correct. If it's not, you either need to update it in the web form here or update it in the opt-in tool that you're using. So I then want to check, and hang on a sec, have I gone in, have I actually achieved that goal and moved into the sequence? So I've just looked at the reporting view and I can see there's one in there now and there's one in the actual sequence. So if I hover over here and I can look at the little, see that person icon, then I can see who is this contact, and I can go in and actually check out their record from there. So you can see that's all my details, but I actually want to go through to the better view. I like the interactive view, it's just a personal preference of mine, but I actually want to check and make sure, oops, sorry, let's go back to the campaign, that the things that I had scheduled in that campaign have actually occurred. So we jumped in there a moment ago, but I want to jump back in there again now. Let's go and edit. And what was happening in here is I was going to apply a tag, opt-in testing example. So if I go here on that test contact record that you've got there, select the tag option, and you can see opt-in testing example. Now, just on that, what I actually recommend is you set up some test email accounts. Don't use your primary account. We've got a bunch of other test at Streamline for Success, etc., etc. So I recommend that you set those up just so that you've got some other dummy contacts to play with, but I've obviously used my main email address here as an example. So I do recommend that you do that. But for the purpose of this example, you can see from the test the opt-in that we had, the opt-in tag that we had created has been applied to that contact. Now, if you do want some assistance or some ideas around tag categories, there'll be a link below this video as well on our tag methodology, so that'll be shared below as well. So one of the other things that's really important that's often missed by a number of users of Infusionsoft is thinking that you have to wait for all of these timers to pass to actually see those emails hit your account. Now, if we go back to the reporting view here, and if I just change this to be current, you can see there's one contact there. If I double click on that number, I can then actually see that this contact is waiting 1 day, and then there's another couple of emails going. So we'll come back to that in a moment, but firstly I do want to have a look at this particular email. So let me just go grab that. Okay, this is not clearly it's not a real email. We've just got some dummy copy in there, and just to give you an example of what would be happening in this particular sequence. So we would have some type of free offer, we would be delivering that free offer, and then in this case, if we refer back to the campaign, we are driving them through to an initial purchase. So it's a low-end purchase, so that's what we would be driving them through to. So I want to just make sure, hey, do all of these links work? And we can go ahead and open that file. Yep, that looks good. And then I want to do that for each of them. I've got a link on that particular image as well. Open that up. That looks good. And then finally, I'm driving them through to actually purchasing that particular product. Which you can see there, and it's pre-populated with my address details. So that email looks good. What I'm also doing here is testing and making sure the copy and the layout matches up with the original content that was created for this email. So I'm usually referring back to a Word document. I typically write all my emails out in a Word document first and style it there, and then move them into Infusionsoft. So I'm also comparing against those. Is the subject line right? Is the preview text, I don't think I put any preview text in this example, but is that right as well? And all those sorts of things. But the big critical thing you're testing here is, do the links work? So let's go ahead here. Now, if you are tagging on any of those links, which I don't think we are in this case, you also want to go here and just confirm that the tagging gets applied as well. Okay, so if we jump back in here again, in the reporting view, if I double click on that one, now I've got another few emails coming up here, another 2 actually. So as you can see, and as I mentioned a moment ago, I don't want to have to wait another day to see this email. So here's a little trick for you. So if you head to the interactive view under campaigns, and you can see that this email got sent and a tag got applied and I opted in, and you can also see what's coming up. So there's email 2 is scheduled on the 8th of May at 12 o'clock and the 10th of May at 12 o'clock. So that's also helpful for you to test and make sure the timers make sense. And then here, what you can also do is just send them. You don't even have to wait for that timer to pass. So you can send that one and send the final one. So I won't go through it each of those emails because it's basically the same process. Open up the email, check against the original copy that you had been given or you had written. Is it the same? The subject line, the preview text, and most importantly, do those links work? It's really, really important. So let's jump back in here. You can see this contact's now jumped right to the end, and there's no further action or elements scheduled to happen there. Now, just a side note, I do personally like to have a timer at the end, and the reason for that is if we refresh this view here, let's say that last email was just sent to the person and I consider them still an active contact because they've only just got the material. We do want to wait a couple of days for them to take action on that material. So I like to put a delay timer right at the end. So if I'm ever looking at the reporting view, I can come in here and go, oh, okay, cool, I've got one person in here. And as soon as that timer gets reached, then they go into the queued contacts that are in this orange number below. So just a side note on that. All right, so we've kind of had a look at that sequence. All looks good. Now we have a purchase goal. So you might be wondering, how can I test a purchase if I don't really want to use my credit card? And in this case, this is a dummy example, but this is a $1,000 product. I don't really want to have to stuff around with putting $1,000 on my card because that's a pain in the butt. So there's two things you can do to actually approach this scenario. So firstly, you could use a test credit card. So actually, it's not your credit card that's processed. It's kind of done on a dummy credit card, and the order will still exist on your contact record. However, you're not charged for it, essentially. So a lot of our clients do use eWay, and I'll pop the URL below this video on this particular article on what credit cards you can use to test. And I'm sure if you Google test credit card numbers or something like that, you'll also come across some articles that might be more up to date than this particular one is anyway. So check that out. What I do want to show you is another way, because sometimes they work and unfortunately sometimes they don't. So I want to show you in here what we do is we can also create a promo code. So I'm going to take you in here. Give me a second. And we're going to go under e-commerce and my navigation, e-commerce promotions. And we're going to create a new one, and it's going to be a product specific one. And we're going to call it test product blog article. And you'd probably put a description in there, testing purposes only. And this is where you want to select the product and the amount. So this particular product is worth $1,000, so I am going to give it a discount of basically everything, so it only charges me, maybe we can put in 5 cents. Oops. I only want to put in 5 cents on my credit card. And let's go ahead and save. So what's really important here is if you add a criteria, you must add a criteria, and I would put a promo code and do that straight away, because otherwise if you create that and you already have order forms out there, if you have no criteria, that discount gets applied to everything. So really, really important that you do that. Testing, 1, 2, 3. And let's go ahead and save that. So what I also would recommend that you do is go back to your promotions and just make sure it was not duplicated. And there's only one there, which is perfect, because sometimes I have actually seen this happen and it gets duplicated, so we don't want that to occur. So I'm just going to refresh the page, and I'm going to put in testing 1, 2, 3, 4 and apply that. And of course it didn't work. So the reason why it didn't work is I did not clear my caches or cookies, all those fun things. So I'm just going to quickly open in Chrome here. That's fine. Testing 1, 2, whoops. Testing 1, 2, 3, apply. And you can see, because I've got the tax component there, we've got a 5 cents and a tax of 1 cent and 6 cents. That's fine. So I'm actually going to use my credit card here just as an example, but obviously not share it. Actually, let's just give this one a whirl. Visa, that one, and as it says in the instructions, sometime in the future, and 1, 2, 3. Nope, I do not want that to happen. No issuer, and see, this is my this has happened before. Actually, as I mentioned before, is sometimes when you test the test credit cards, they don't work. So I'm going to go ahead and just populate my details in here. So give me 2 seconds. Okay, so it worked. You can see that I've been redirected to the thank you page. So I'm not only testing and making sure that our merchant account is good, but I'm also testing that our thank you page is being redirected to the right page. So that's a couple of things I'm checking there. The other thing I'm also wanting to make sure is that if I go back to the campaign, did I actually achieve this purchase goal here? If I refresh this, you can see I achieved that goal. If we go in the last 24 hours, you'll notice that there's a new person in there and it's moved into there. So as Infusionsoft is designed, people are to typically achieve goals and get pulled out of wherever they are in any sequence prior, and then they get moved into the next sequence. So that's definitely what's happened here, which is great. Now, if you are testing maybe a different email account, or potentially you want people to enter who may not have achieved any of the goals or in any sequence prior to that goal, you need to make sure you have that as an entry point. As sometimes if that goal wasn't achieved, maybe you've used a different email account and they're not in the sequence prior. So just make sure you've got this any contact selected there. So very similar to the approach that we had before is that once someone goes in here, we want to go back to the contact record. And I want to make sure that the order's there. You can see the order's there, that's for today. And I also want to make sure that any of this follow-up is also in there. So I'm going to check this tag. This tag is just generic tag, which is my fault. I didn't put it into a tag category, my bad. But if we go here, you can see this purchase test, and then we can have a look in the campaigns, and there's some tracking stuff going on that's a bit strange. Not us, but some old Infusionsoft stuff that was happening there. But you can see that a purchase email has been sent, and I've got some other things going on in some other campaigns, but not really related to that one actually. So really I'm just wanting to make sure that this particular email has gone, and anything else in this particular sequence. I get asked a lot actually about if there's a marketing side of a funnel and someone purchases it, should I leave them all in the same campaign? I mean, there's pros and cons of both, but typically we would move them out and have this purchase, nurture and follow up and everything like that in a separate campaign, because usually delivering that product or service, there's a number of steps and things involved, whereas the purpose of this campaign is typically potentially just a marketing campaign. But I'll leave that up to you. The same principles do apply, whether you're testing a marketing funnel, purchase funnel, customer service, fulfillment, anything like that. So these same principles apply. So that's pretty much it. I hope that's been helpful. Definitely the reporting wizard here is your friend. Once you have set that up, if you have set up a promo code, I would probably just recommend just deleting it if it's not going to be used again for testing purposes, just to avoid any confusion or anyone potentially using that later on. And if you are having troubles that the emails aren't getting into your account, we also have a checklist available, and I'll also put the link down below of if perhaps you or maybe contacts are reaching out and saying, look, I'm not getting people are missing emails or they're not getting it. This testing process is helpful, but sometimes you're having to find out what's happening for an existing contact who's missing content. So check out that checklist because that could be really, really helpful for you. So that's pretty much it. That's how to test a campaign, in particular web forms. We've looked at sequences and how to test a product purchase in Infusionsoft. So hopefully that helps you out. And if you want any further information, there's some links down below. It's been Mandy Brusser here from Streamline for Success, and look forward to speaking with you soon.